Endures Media and your host for the Healthier Workplaces show. And we're really happy to have a special edition here. Dr. Helena Bosky is going to be the closing keynote on the for the event today. Shortly. So we're taking time out of your busy schedule to be here on that. So you have a PhD in psychology, and leadership, and you're the lead author in the study on Health Psychology Open on stress in the workplace. So could you tell us a little bit about that work that you're involved in? It seems really interesting.
Yes, well, Bob, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this podcast. I am what you call a late starter in the world of psychology. I actually studied the classical world, so Greek, Latin, ancient history, the classical world. And then I moved into sales and marketing and started running presentations or giving presentations for various departments across a variety of industries. I kept moving in the days when moving wasn't quite so fashionable. But I realized then that I was dealing with human behavior and I had more questions than I was giving them answers. And I wanted to figure out what was behind some of their responses. So what I did was I went back and studied how people learn, especially at work. And then I went back and studied more psychology, entrepreneurial thinking, what makes people learn and want to learn for the rest of their lives. And then after that, I wasn't done. I had to go back and study 2 more years in the world of cognitive neuroscience, mental health, the brain and behavior. And during that whole process, people were coming up to me saying, I'm losing my memory. I can't think straight. So I realized, because of the studies that I was engaging in and because of the work I was doing, and all of this was happening at the same time, that I would need to take a closer look. And we use cortisol. We talk about cortisol as the stress hormone. There are actually a number of stress hormones. Cortisol is probably the most famous one. But cortisol is produced through a stress system called the HPA axis, which is designed to dampen our immune system. Because if you have your fight or flight response activated very quickly, you also need a system that stops our immune system firing too much. So cortisol has to be there to dampen down this inflammation. Otherwise, you get this terrible reaction in the body. So cortisol behaves like hydrocortisone cream. It's an anti-inflammatory. The problem with stress and switching on a system that we're designed to switch on very quickly and then switch off again is that we're switching on these systems over and over again. And cortisol, the presence of cortisol in our system for a long time, can have a terrible effect on our brain and system. And one of the big signs of stress is memory loss. And that's why when people are saying to me, I can't think straight, I'm losing my memory, I realized I would have to go back and investigate, which prompted the study that I then published. So instead of taking out, traditionally at the time, people would use cortisol in urine, blood, or saliva. And that fluctuates. Hair cortisol is much more stable. So I went around the world cutting people's hair and then we had it all minced, and the cortisol was extracted in a lab in Cambridge in the UK. And then I was then able to extrapolate the relationship between cortisol and stress. What I did see was a very high relationship between cortisol and anger. So our cortisol goes up when we're angry. But anger is a very protective emotion. It's there to protect us, to help us deal with the world. The big problem is then, we're putting on our system in a stress state. So that's a very long answer to your question.
That's Bob, a great answer, though. but I mean, yeah. So workplace stress is a psychosocial hazard.
Yes.
And workers with stress, levels. I mean, obviously, it causes all kinds of potential health issues, cardiovascular problems.
Yes.
Performance, productivity, you name it. Right. It's a definite problem. So how and why is stress at work? How does it impact people's health and safety? I guess in the workplace, but also
generally,
at home. Yeah, just in life.
Yeah, generally. Well, there are 4 main areas where stress can really play out. Cognitively, we we have racing, anxious thoughts. So we can't see the good. We only see the dark side of life. We can't think straight. We have memory loss. We're prone to outbursts. We get hyper reactive. Behaviorally, our habits change. So we develop anxious habits like nail biting or jiggly legs, or we pace, or we breathe too quickly. Physically, you see signs in this is what you're talking about in the cardiovascular system. Blood sugar is impaired, our immune system is affected, our heart races, which is dreadful. And we put ourselves at risk of so many other diseases when we're in that heightened state. And then you've got emotional. So you've got a cognitive, behavioral, physical, and emotional. And emotional is, so when the early signs is cognitive, it's memory loss. And people don't always associate that with stress. But then that often then plays out very quickly after that into emotional, where people just get really upset very easily. And they can't recalibrate or readjust themselves to deal with the world. And then you've got physical and behavioral. So then you have lack of sleep. It's dreadful. People talk about stress as if it's really good for us, and actually it really isn't. A cognitive chronic stress is the thing that we have to watch out for. We're designed to switch on a system and switch it off. That's it.
It's not supposed to stay on perpetually.
It's not. It's meant to deal with lions and tigers and bears in our world. It's not meant to deal with the modern world.
Yeah. So how does brain, knowledge of brain function and occupational environmental health and safety professionals, how can that help? How can we help in reducing stress? I mean, how does that work? Taking it down to the OEHS level.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, professionals in this area, first of all, need to be aware of all the warning signs of stress, I think, because we tend to wait till it's a bit too late. And then we tell people to develop strategies or introduce strategies into their lives at a time when they least feel like doing it. At the time when you most need these strategies, that's the time when you're done, you're burned out. The last thing you feel like doing is the very thing you need to do. So we have to be able to spot these warning signs as early as possible, and then help people develop strategies for if they're in a burned out state, for recovery. And recovery is really important because it's a process we need to go through. We need to see ourselves as recovering from burnout.
Okay.
And not just say, well, I'll go for a quick walk and that's me done. It's keeping an eye on yourself. That's the first thing. So getting people to be much more attuned to what they're seeing and playing out in front of them. But the other thing, and I spend my life, a lot of my working life, trying to help people think about this. We have to get used to doing the tough stuff, because resilience is not built during easy times. We don't build strength. We don't go to the gym and walk around the gym and then leave again. We go to the gym, pick up weights or get on a machine and put ourselves through quite a difficult routine in order to strengthen ourselves physically. We have to do this psychologically as well. And the only way we can build resilience is by getting used to dealing with the tough stuff, to be able to adjust our systems to difficult times. And it's when the world is at its most volatile and unpredictable, that's when we actually learn most about ourselves. And resilient people aren't resilient despite failure or despite adversity. They're resilient because of it. Okay. So get used to doing the tough stuff. Uncertainty and unpredictability are the two things the brain absolutely does everything to avoid, but they're the things we need to nudge ourselves into a new relationship with reality. And we have to learn about ourselves and keep an eye on ourselves all the time. Get used to not feeling good at things in order to learn how to get better.
But this is an individual path that we all have to achieve too, right? Because there's not a one size fits all method.
No, absolutely, and right. We have to find what works for us. There are little things. So OEHS professionals can help individuals figure that stuff out. So it's being able to customize and tailor programs to suit people. It's really important, for example, in the working day, that people introduce micro breaks into their world. They don't sit at their screens endlessly all day, because they'll just literally fry their brains. It's introducing micro breaks all the way through, giving yourself regular little rewards to look forward to, because dopamine, the chemical that's released in anticipation of something good,
which we seek,
which we seek, well, we love the feeling of it. If we can release this at little intervals, it actually stops another stress chemical, noradrenaline, from kicking in. And noradrenaline is the chemical that sometimes makes us want to quit early. So dopamine stops us wanting to quit. But we have to tap into the reward system in the right way. Fall in love with learning for the sake of it. Name your emotions. Dan Siegel said this: name your emotions to tame your emotions. The minute we think about and talk about how we're feeling, even if we're feeling horrible, we actually change the connections with those emotions in the brain. And the brain's able, you're putting the brain in a really good state for us to be able to deal with those emotions. So we feel differently about those feelings when we talk about them, and we reduce stress by 50%. I mean,
really, that's a substantial number.
It's a huge number,
right?
Yeah.
So just
talking about it.
Talking is
Tell
huge.
people it's okay not to feel okay, and by the way, it's okay to talk about not feeling okay.
It is like, typically in Western culture, right? Well, actually, all culture, it's male. There's this male preponderance of not being able to discuss your feelings. Right? Men can't talk about feelings. So I mean, is this something that is more of a male dominant problem, or is it?
I think people are getting much better now at talking about things that perhaps were more uncomfortable 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I think we are talking much more about mental health now than we've ever done. I always say, don't just deal with mental health, because the brain and the body kind of coexist.
Right.
And the body's not just there to wheel the brain around. It has a very symbiotic, reciprocal relationship with the brain. We've got to be able to deal with the entire system. So introducing physical movement into our day much more than we currently do. We're very sedentary now. We're sitting way too long. Look at
case in point. I've been sitting behind this production booth for hours on end.
Oh yeah, that's not good. I mean, and the hippocampal region, which houses a lot of our memory, and this is the area of the brain that's affected by dementia and cognitive degenerative decline. This area really only started to grow when we learned to walk. So movement and memory go hand in hand. I've been doing exams way into my adult life. I mean, it's been good for me, but difficult for me. But I used to, when I was doing really tough exams, I used to take my notes and put them on a treadmill and run and revise at the same time, because it really helped.
What's multitasking too?
Well, yeah, we can't do that.
I know. I'm demonstrating that you can, though, right now.
Well, you're not paying attention to two things at the same time.
I'm really paying attention to you.
Well, I hope so.
I'm this is muscle memory here. All the controls.
That's it. And that actually is accessing a different part of the brain than your attentional system.
So that's how I'm able to do it.
That's how you're able to do it, because you're doing it without real conscious thought.
Yep.
The conscious attention part of the brain is here, and this can't subdivide.
Okay, that's fair.
Pay attention. We can't pay attention to two things. It's like a torch spotlight. It's you shine it on different things.
So, in what other ways could a psychologist or neuroscientist expertise help people, be safe and healthy at work? I mean,
I think if we get to know ourselves a bit better, get to know this amazing organ inside our heads, it's there. We take it so much for granted, and I think everything starts with the brain. The brain is the basis of everything we do. So if we can start with helping people understand what the brain is designed for, what the brain is not designed for, and how we can use what we know about the brain to create strategies to get the brain to do things that are good for the brain, then I think, we're on to a winner.
Okay.
The big problem is, though, Bob, is that what the brain wants and what the brain needs are two really different things.
Yeah, so you have to align that, right?
Yeah, well, you can't. You've got to hack it. You've got to hack the brain's natural. So the brain is naturally very lazy. The brain is naturally a very quick thinker, which, in terms of the environment and making the environment safer, once we know that the brain is making quick decisions all the time, then OEHS professionals can help people create environments where they help people do what's right for them without them thinking about it.
Okay.
So that it's creating environments where change takes place more on an automatic basis, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later
Excellent.
today. But understanding the brain and where the brain wants to take us and where we need to take the brain, those are two really, I think, and it's fascinating, because we're learning about ourselves, what makes us tick, and how we can get the best out of ourselves and help others along the way as well.
So I guess my next question is: are there some opportunities for cross-disciplinary collaboration, I should say, between psychologists, neuroscientists, and OEHS people?
Oh,
Because
I think
obviously
there's a huge opportunity, and I've worked, over the course of my career, I've worked quite a bit with professionals who are having to create safer environments for people. And how do you get people to pay attention to things that they get very accustomed to? How do you increase a more aware lens of people's surroundings? How do you get people to adopt safer behaviors, safer routines? How do you get people to see the dangers you can see? Because we don't see the same things at all.
Sure.
Our reality is so subjective. And so how do you get people to see the reality you see? Or how do you get people to understand some of the dangers you're trying to get them to avoid when they can't see them? These are really big questions in this field. And I think once we tap into the brain's resources and we try and figure all this out together, I think, fantastic opportunity to cross-pollinate.
Excellent. Yeah. This is it's just astounding, to be honest.
I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we all do, I think have a tendency to stress ourselves out unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, and like you're suggesting that we need to do some. But
we need to get used to doing things that are hard for us. That comes with feelings of discomfort. I was in a gym in San Francisco about 2 years ago, and I saw this poster on the wall, and it said, "Are you feeling tired, sweaty, and sore? Good, then it's working." And I thought, do you know what? Learning is all about that. And having continued learning during most of my adult years, and I'm still not done, I'm still learning all the time. It's difficult. It's difficult not feeling good at something when we spend a lot of our earlier years trying to get an expertise. And this becomes very challenging for us because as soon as we develop an expertise, we stop questioning ourselves. In fact, the brain starts to say, you're okay, you're done. It stops trying to figure things out more. So it's only when we put ourselves into difficult situations and we get used to feeling that tired, sweaty, sore feeling, that we then are much better able to adapt to things when they don't go according to plan. And the world will never go according to plan. We have to, it's messy, it's unpredictable, it's full of friction and difficulty. And being able to navigate this, we can't manage change, it's unmanageable. But what we can do is adjust our systems to deal with the unpredictable.
Well, that's a great note to leave on, though. Helena, thanks so very much for coming here before you have to do the closing keynote. Because I know that's like one after another. Consider this your green room warm up.
It's been great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure having you here on the show, and I will be there in attendance of your presentation.
I'll look out for you.
I'm looking forward to it. So that's going to conclude our live coverage here from AIHA Connect 2024 in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks so very much for watching it. A lot of these recorded episodes we've done here will be coming out over the next several months. But hope you enjoyed the live stream here. And again, Helena, thanks for being here with us. So with that, I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors Media, and the host of the host for the Healthier Workplaces show. I do a lot of shows. To be fair, it's like we're live too. So anyway, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.